Man, I have to give you amazing props. You're such a curious person about the people that you talk to. I love it. I love it, man.
Thank you.
The answer is, thank you. Are you kidding me? I've been on a ton of podcasts and people just same question.
Welcome to the Idea Climbing Radio Show. Today we're talking about how to create abundance thinking for your big idea, and my guest is Ellen Rogin. Ellen is a money expert and financial intuitive who helps people reshape their relationships with money so they can have happier, more abundant lives. She's the author of several books, including the New York Times bestseller, Picture Your Prosperity, and her newest book, Messages from Money, How to Stress Less, Prosper More, and Reshape Your Relationship to Money. And her work has been featured on CNBC, ABC, NPR, Time, and Oprah Magazine. Thank you for making the time to do this, Ellen. I appreciate it.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here with you, Mark. Thank you for having me.
And I'd love to know, as far as abundance thinking, obviously you're amazing at it now and you teach it. Has it always been part of your life, or did you discover it sometime along over the course of the path of your life? What's the story behind abundance in your life?
I think I was born kind of optimistic. When I was little, I remember watching like this old Disney movie about Pollyanna. And I remember my mother saying to me when I was early in my career, well, you're so Pollyannish. And I thought that was like a good thing, to be always looking at the positive side of things.
Yeah.
I didn't know what like abundance versus scarcity thinking was early on in my professional life. And then I became a student of it and realized I think I lean more towards the abundance side, but we all sometimes think about scarcity and how that can show up for us. Might be helpful for people watching and listening in to define scarcity versus abundance. Would that be a good thing, Mark?
I think that's a beautiful place to start.
So scarcity thinking tends to be worry-based. This idea that there's only so much to go around. For me to win, you have to lose. So aggressive competition. It's where people are really stuck in fear around, and we're talking about money here. And I think people kind of get that, but it can also show up in ways where we're either judging someone else or judging ourselves with money. It can be envy. So something awesome happens to a friend of yours and you should be so excited for them. And part of you is either a little judgy of them or immediate turn it back to yourself. Like, well, why didn't that happen to me? And so that's where scarcity lives. Abundance thinking is more expansive. There's more than enough to go around. It's generosity focused. It's abundant. It's optimistic. Mm-hmm. It is collaborative, knowing that, if we can all win at this. And another metaphor I like to use with this is going against the current or with the current. So my husband, Stephen, about 6 years ago, did an Ironman competition. And I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a triathlon. I haven't done it either. I've run marathons, but like to think about swimming 2.4 miles, biking 112, and then running a marathon. It's kind of crazy. So he did his Ironman in Louisville, and he did really, really well in the swim for his age group, like way better than he thought he would do. And part of the reason that happened was that he was swimming in the Ohio River with the current. And I like to think of abundance thinking is swimming with the current and scarcity thinking swimming against the current. Mm-hmm. Now, there are lots of people that can be financially successful and be swimming against the current or be focused on scarcity. It just sucks. Like, why would you want to do that? Because you can also have, with more ease and more joy and more purpose, the financial success that you'd like or any kind of success, really, when you're going with the current and focusing on abundance thinking.
If someone becomes aware that they're in that scarcity mindset, how do you turn it around? How do you get out of it?
Yeah, well, there's lots of strategies to get around it. But I think the first thing that you just said is, how do you be aware? Once they're aware, that's like the first step, is to actually being aware that you are in that scarcity place. Because sometimes it can just feel like the truth. It's the water that we're swimming in. of course things are scary. We might be going into a recession. Of course things are scary. There's wars all over the world. Like it is easy to not even realize that we're operating out of that. So the first part really is being aware. And when you're aware, a strategy to move outside of that is to really be discerning about what you think and what you say about your money. Mark, I don't know if you know what the definition of abracadabra is, like the magical thing. Yeah.
No.
We think of it like magic, right?
Yeah.
Abracadabra has Hebrew and Aramaic roots, and it actually translates into I will create as spoken. I will create as spoken. And it's magic. Like our words matter. So if you catch yourself saying something you don't want to have happen, like, oh my God, what if this deal falls through? Or what if I never get my project funded? Or what if we go into another 2008 kind of recession? One easy strategy is to say out loud or to yourself, cancel, clear. Cancel that thought, clear it away, and then you can replace it with something else instead. So cancel, clear. So that's the first part, is being aware. The second part is being clear. And this is being clear where you want to go. It's easy if we go with the current metaphor, you could be just bopping along with no clarity about what you really want to create, having no big idea that you want to create for yourself. And so being clear is really important. And then using the power of your mind for visualization to help create that. So being aware and clear, and then care. A lot of what I love talking about is our relationship with money and our mindset. And we live in a material world. And so we have to take action on things. And so to care for your business finances or your personal finances, and this is taking action.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone can think of something that they know they need to take action on. Like we always know there's sometimes we don't know what we don't know. But usually when I ask people that, they're like, oh yeah, so mine was, I hadn't reconciled my bank account. Like I'm a CPA by background, right? It had been, I hadn't actually realized it had been all year. So that's what I did over Thanksgiving weekend is I did, 9-10 months of bank reconciliations.
Oh,
I didn't do that. Yeah, it wasn't that fun, but it is somewhat affirming when it all balances and you've got like the reconcile works out. Maybe that's just the nerdy numbers part of me, but care. So aware, clear, care. And the last part is share. Having this go live the day after Giving Tuesday, it's like such a cool day that everybody's focused on sharing. And I think that, one of the things that I believe is that generosity precedes prosperity.
mm-hmm.
And when we can give more flows back to you. And those are all good ways to move from scarcity thinking to abundance.
What are a few practices to enhance self-awareness? Because I know so many people aren't self-aware. Like you said, they just, it is what it is. They don't think about it. They go ahead, even if they're trudging through mud, it seems like mental mud. What type of things can you do to practice self-awareness to become more self-aware?
Well, one idea that I actually think is a great financial strategy, which doesn't sound like a financial strategy, but it leads right into this question of how to be more aware, is to meditate. And there's all different kinds of ways of meditating, but we can't be aware of our thought. We have 6,500 thoughts a day. It's like la, 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 la. And most of them are garbage or not true. And it's just like this noise in the background. And for me, one of the best business strategies that I've ever implemented was a meditation practice, because then it's like a snow globe where you shake it and then things settle down.
Mm-hmm.
And then meditation doesn't mean you have no thoughts. It just means they're a little bit slower. You can start to notice them as thoughts versus just getting carried away with them.
How do you calm your mind down to do it? Because I know, at least personally, with meditation, some days it's like my mind just won't stop going. How can you slow your mind down enough to start meditating?
Yeah. So I think one of the misconceptions about meditation is that there's like no thoughts. And actually the work or the benefit of meditation, kind of the mental bicep curl, is noticing that you stopped. Let's just talk about different kinds of meditation. Then I'll come back to that for a second. There are I don't know, millions. There are many different ways to meditate, just like working out. Maybe you like Zumba, maybe you like CrossFit, maybe you like running or walking in nature. And there's the same thing with meditation. A simple practice is to just have something to focus your attention on, because we need that. Our minds are built for thinking. So an easy thing for many people is focusing on the breath. And so the bicep curl, as I was started to say before, is I'm focusing on my breath. I'm noticing the inhales and exhales. And then all of a sudden I'm thinking about what I need at Trader Joe's or whatever thoughts come into our mind. And then it's like, oh, I'm supposed to be focusing on my breath. And then I come back to focus on the breath. The leaving and noticing and coming back, that's actually where the mental focus building comes from. It's not just that I've spent 2 minutes or 5 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever someone's meditation practice is focusing on the breath. It's noticing and then coming back. And I've had meditations probably this morning where I might spend the whole 20 minutes thinking about something else and go, oh, wait, it was very noisy in there. And then coming back to the breath. So you can't really do it wrong. There's lots of great apps out there to help with this. I think it's great for someone to take a class. I've done several different meditation classes, and I think that getting that support is helpful. But even like there's an app called Insight Timer. It's free. They have 30,000 meditations guided. You could just use the timer and just starting a practice. And if someone's like, I cannot sit still, there is no way I'm ever going to do that, you can do a walking meditation and just notice your steps, notice what it feels like, or just notice what you notice when you're walking.
Well, when someone becomes aware and clear that, okay, I'm breaking out of scarcity, whether it's meditation, whatever they want to do, what do they do next to move into abundance and not just be aware that they're in scarcity, but actually move into abundance?
Yeah. So action's super important. It can be things like creating a prosperity picture for yourself, which is like a vision board. It's a way to put images of things that you would like to see show up in your life on a board. I can, assuming I don't take this whole computer that this is attached to down, I can show you mine. This is my prosperity picture. And it's got images of things that I want to have show up in my life. And it's not, I think sometimes vision boards or prosperity pictures, as I call them, have gotten a little bit of a bad rap. It's not like just putting a picture up there, it magically appears. Like you have to take action. But what it's doing is programming a part of our brain called the reticular activating system. And this is about the size of your pinky, end of your little finger, and at the base of your skull. It's part of your brain. And it helps you know what's important. So just a short example is I have had on my prosperity picture a picture of Australia. And I had this goal to get hired to speak in Australia, to be on a big stage there. I wanted to get hired. I've always wanted to go there. I thought it'd be really cool to have someone pay me to go there, fly me over nicely. And it was on my board for a really, really long time. And what it ended up doing, part of the reason I wanted that is I think I want to live there for part of the year. And I thought maybe I should visit before I moved to Australia. Yeah. So every time I hear an Australian accent, I would make a beeline and say, hey, I think I might want to live there. Where would I want to live? Like I know not much about Australia. What ended up happening was I applied. It was like the fourth time I think I applied to speak through this organization. And I was just so convinced I had a topic that would serve their audience, which was about thinking your way to prosperity. And it was really well outlined and really clear. I didn't even know where their global conference was. Guess what? Last year, I got to go to Australia. It was in Sydney. It was such a dream trip for me. I remember like landing in the hotel, being exhausted, looking out at breakfast, seeing the Sydney Opera House and the bridge. And I was in tears. And that's been on my prosperity picture forever. And so sometimes things don't happen as quickly as we want, but that if it's a goal that's important to you, to have reminders up of why it is important and what you want to accomplish is a great way to switch from scarcity to abundance.
Well, it sounds like what you're saying, and tell me if I'm on point, is that if you want abundance, you have to be clear about what you want. I know so many people don't have goals, or they're very loose and they're not taking action. How big of a role does clarity play in creating abundance?
Well, it's very important, right? Because you can't, otherwise you're just kind of driving without any kind of destination. And sometimes we're not clear. Like, it's not always easy. I'm running a workshop in a couple of weeks. You're in goal setting, and I had someone send me an email and say, like, it freaks her out to think about goals because she's not clear, and it's really anxiety producing. So, like, I get it. You can have a goal of gaining clarity. And one of the things I do at the end of the year is create a word for the year. Lots of people do this, but it's like a theme. It can be aspirational. It could be something you want to see show up. And interestingly, you bring this up because my word for 2024 is clear. And it's clear for a couple of reasons. It means clear because I know I'm going to be heading into some new areas in my business, and I want to gain more clarity on that. And the other part is clear, like clearing stuff out. I have too much stuff around. We're moving out of this office that I'm in. I was here when I had my financial planning firm. I've got 4 empty offices. It's ridiculous. We just sold the building, and I'm looking around. I'm like, oh my God, there is so much stuff to be donated and given away, and it's going to be so great to clear, because I wasn't really motivated before, because it was like, well, I don't really have to do this. So I think, to back to your question, you can set a goal on gaining clarity, or a goal on something that gets you moving in the direction, even if you're not exactly sure what that is.
Well, how do you, if you're not exactly sure what that is, how can you gain clarity of what it is that you're moving towards? I mean, is it journaling? How do you get clear about it? If you're like, I know I'm moving towards success, but I don't have anything beyond I'm moving towards success. What do you do to get clear about it?
Yeah, I love that you brought up journaling, because for a long time I was a resistant journaler. I don't know if you ever read the book, The Artist Way, but Julia Cameron talks about doing these morning papers. And I tried that for a while because everyone was saying how great it was. It drove me up the friggin' wall. Like, I was like, I hate this. And so I decided, like, I hated journaling. And then I started, I think it was 2011, most every morning, I started typing my journaling and just asking a question like, what is my purpose? Why am I here? And I would just, like, whatever came through. And I didn't judge it. No one was going to see it. But many really good ideas. That's really how I've written my books. And now, you mentioned in the intro that I'm a financial intuitive. One of the things that showed up for me near the end of me having my financial advisory practice is that I'm super intuitive with people's money stuff. And I talk to money, and it talks back to me, the energy of money. And it can just be a metaphor for you. For me, I actually feel like I get messages for myself and on behalf of other people. The way that I do that now, Mark, is I journal. So I'll ask money questions. Hi, money. What messages do you have for Mark? And I just trust what comes through, and it ends up being helpful for people. So it can be, hi, whoever you're writing to. Hi, higher self. Hi, the universe. Hi, whatever feels, whatever. An aunt, mom who's passed, like, any messages from, and just say, like, what should I be focusing on today? One of my favorite questions is, who should I be in contact with today? Who needs to hear from me? As long as we're talking about this, I think this is helpful when we're in scarcity to move to abundance. Anyone who's ever tried to sell anything can know that it's easy to get into scarcity sometimes, like if a deal's not coming through. So last June, I had pitched 2 speaking engagements for groups I know I could totally serve. The topic was right on. I had a great relationship with the person I was talking to, and then crickets. Like, didn't hear anything back. And I was like, and I started to get really pissed. I'm like, they could tell me no. Like, it's okay. I can handle a no, but it's like so hard to have nothing. And I was like building this whole thing up, being mad at them. And I really want this. And I made it all about me. And I'm like, okay, Ellen, stop. Like, that is totally swimming against the current. And I just decided, I was like, okay, this is not moving an agenda ahead. It's not serving. And I just stopped and said, okay, who needs me more than ever? How can I be generous on this? Who needs to hear my information? And I was journaling. And one of the women, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to send her a book and a really nice note and let go of any attachment.
Mhm.
And then like 6 weeks later, she called me. She goes, oh my gosh, I'm sorry I haven't been in touch, but I watched every one of your YouTube videos. I want you for 3 different conferences. It was like so much better than I initially anticipated
Whoa.
they were talking about.
Yeah.
And I think that was that energy shift of like, stop focusing on me, focusing on how I can serve, and stop, I think sometimes if we have too much attention on ourselves and not how we're out there helping others, it doesn't move things ahead as quickly or as easily as it could. Because people feel that when you're in a conversation with them, right? When you really need the sale versus
Oh, yeah, they pick it up, and even if they don't realize it unconsciously, they're like, oh, this is salesy.
100%. Yeah. And then when we could be of service, like the conversation we had before we went live, like, what do you want your audience? What do you most want for your audience? And you so generously said, I want them to have information they can put into action right away. Like that wasn't like, you didn't say, I want them to come hire me. I want to look good in front of that. I'm sure, all that would be lovely, but you were focusing on how you could serve them.
Could you speak more about money energy? I love that term. I mean, what is it? How do you engage with it?
Yeah. So I think most people think of money in an economic sense, and certainly I did and do because it's part of it. I was an economics major in college.
Mhm.
But there's also this energetic part of money, this part that plays into our lives in kind of unseen ways. I mean, we know money flows through every part of our relationships, right? Spouses, one of the biggest causes of divorce. Just like we said, like this feeling of, I really need the sale, I need this to come through versus wanting to be of service. That's all around the energy of money. It had nothing to do with practically how money works in our lives. And practical part of money is important. I'm not diminishing that.
Mhm.
But when we can focus on the energetic parts, things can flow more smoothly. And even I find it helpful to think of money almost as an entity in our life, whether that's metaphoric or actual for you. And if you think about, if you were in a relationship with money, like a personal relationship, and whether it's a romantic relationship or a good friend relationship, how are you showing up for money? I think we look for money to help show up for us. Like,
Mhm.
I want it there. I want it to go right into my bank account. I want these perfect fit clients. But how are you showing up? Like, are you a person that trusts money? Are you a person that expects it to be there, kind of a user? Are you someone that's just looking for a hookup? Like, I want money to be there when I want it, and then I don't care. I don't pay any attention to it.
Yeah.
Are you obsessed? Right? Are you like an overbearing, controlling relationship person? Are you jealous? Or are you have a beautiful partnership with money? You just know it's got your back. You take good care of it. And I find that's really helpful for people to think about, would money want to hang around you? Like, are you a good
Mm.
friend to money?
Well, you had mentioned being of service and generosity. Does that come after you enter abundance? Can it lead to abundance? Where does it stand on the spectrum as far as being generous and being of service?
Yeah, I love that question, Mark. People talk a lot like, oh, I want to give back now, or I'll give when I have money. And I actually hate that term, giving back. I think you should give forward because, okay, let's look at it this way. I remember in 2008 when things were scary and people were hanging on to what they had so tightly, like, I'm not going to be okay. And it's almost like making fists around their money. Like, I'm not going to be okay. You can't receive if you're like this, right? If you're grasping onto your money so tightly. Now, there are some people that always have open palms and they're giving, and not really even open to receiving. Like, that doesn't work either. And I think everyone listening can think of an example when they did something nice for someone, or they made a charitable contribution, or they helped somebody out, and then all of a sudden something flowed back to them. Excuse me, flowed back to them.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't like they gave for the purpose of getting something back. They were just being generous. And what came back might not be from them. Like, I might give you a referral for some video work or some other project that you're working on. And it's not like I was like, okay, Mark, tick tock, like when's it going to come back to me? But all of
Yeah.
a sudden something flows through to me from somebody that I wasn't even knew was in my network. And that what goes around comes around. I think it absolutely shows up in our lives and in our business. So yeah, I think that giving precedes prosperity. Generosity precedes prosperity.
When it's not coming around as fast as you'd like it to, how do you, for lack of a better term, how do you keep on keeping on when it just seems like it's not coming back? I'm giving. What kind of mindset can you develop? How do you keep giving and not just give too much?
Yeah. So I think part of it is there's a beautiful book written by Grant a bunch of years ago called Give and Take. And so part of it's how are you giving? You know, there's some of the people that I work with and do some coaching and mentoring for that give in ways that doesn't serve them and they're not really open to receiving. I'm not talking about that. But what you're saying is, okay, like I've been generous. Part of it is doing it in ways that are really serving other people, but then also serving yourself. So that was not a very clear answer. Let me give something a little bit more articulate than that. Because part of, I think, where I'm sticking on it is you're not giving with no expectation of return. If you're like, I'm giving, and nothing's coming back. Right. Like,
Yeah.
and to do it in ways like, if, one thing I think is really helpful is if you're talking about financial giving is to talk about a percentage of your income, because then as your income goes up, you proportionally give more. If your income were to go down, you proportionally give less. And if we're talking about generosity, like in helping people or doing volunteering, I think you can pick a percentage of your time to do that too. And so that you're focusing on growing your business and growing other things, but that there's still some work that you're doing that's out there. I did a messages for money consultation for someone yesterday who's in a job she really doesn't like. She also told me that she's doing some volunteer work that she's so passionate about. And she's like, well, I'd love to work for a nonprofit. I just don't know if that'll work for us financially. And I said, look, the fact you're doing that good work in the world, you may, practically meet somebody through that ends up helping you in your business, but it's also putting good energy out there and it will come back to you. You just do it in a way that doesn't take so much of your time that you're not focusing on supporting yourself as well.
Well, how can you be more open to receiving without being, oh, gimme, but just open energetically to receiving? What can people do to develop that?
Yeah. So one fun way to practice, and I don't know if this is more of a female thing versus a male thing, but sometimes I'll have people practice with accepting compliments, because it's what I've seen, at least in the US, and with maybe more women than men, they'll get a compliment and they'll immediately either push it back, like, oh no, Mark, like your book was really great, instead of like just saying thank you. If someone said, I really appreciate it, I really enjoyed your book. Or internally, they may say, they may diminish it. Years ago, I had my makeup done for a video thing, and the makeup artist is like, oh, you have really beautiful skin. And in my mind, I'm like, she tells that to everybody. I have beautiful skin. And it doesn't matter. And then I realized, like, so what? She was being nice. Like, could I take that in? Thank you. That's all I had to say. And just be open to that. That's one way to be open to receiving. It's also noticing. I'm doing a joint workshop with someone in January, and she's like, she's organizing it. She's getting on, she's sending out to her really big list of people. And she's like, well, all the money will be yours. You're doing all the presentation. I was like, what are you talking about? And I had to push back on her. I'm like, no, we were absolutely not doing it that way. You're doing work. You should be compensated for this. And so sometimes we just need supportive people in our lives to be recognizing and noticing for us ways that we're just pushing abundance away from ourselves.
Does doing that for other people play into, as far as abundance, is giving them compliments and helping them first? Does that lead to abundance?
Yeah. Well, what do you think? Yeah. Like, right, good. What goes around comes around. And maybe we should talk about gratitude a little bit here, because so gratitude is this crazy, easy thing to do that lowers our stress level. Grateful people make more money, they get promoted more, and it's so easy to have a gratitude practice, right? So at the end of meditation, to spend a few moments thinking about what you're grateful for. But what made me think of this, when you're out there complimenting each other, it's also a beautiful practice, especially this time of year, to sharing your gratitude with the people that you're grateful for. So there's one thing for me to be, and I'm not saying this is selfish gratitude, but there's gratitude that helps me. Like, I'm so grateful our family's healthy. I'm grateful our kids were home for Thanksgiving, whatever, personal gratitude. But if I were to say, Mark, it's so great that you reached back out to me to invite me to be on your show. I really am grateful. I'm grateful for what you put out into the world. Like, that not only makes me feel good, but hopefully the person receiving it also feels good. So that's kind of a generous way to be grateful.
Well, if I heard you right, you also have to be specific about gratitude, not just have it be blatant, oh, thank you so much. Is it something you need to get specific about? And if so, what are some ways you can do that?
Yeah, well, my understanding on the research on gratitude is both when you're thinking of it for yourself, like, I'm so grateful that our kids were home and that they cooked dinner when they were there and they were fun and they found great shows for us to watch, or whatever, like specific gratitude. But also, if I were to thank somebody for specifically what I was grateful for, I think that'll be easier for them to receive that, because it's more specific to them versus just a general thanks so much. It's been great, and we could think about, if people are entertaining a lot now, to send a thank you note, which is kind of an old fashioned thing to do after you've been at someone's house. But imagine how well that would be received. Like, thank you so much for inviting us to your beautiful, warm house. It looked it looked amazing. The food was incredible. I really appreciated the way that you introduced me to all these people, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think they would love that?
Not enough people do that. I can't. When
Remember,
I get a note for someone being on the show, it's like, oh, that's not. And especially when you get a handwritten something, it's like they really took time to think about this.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you always practice gratitude again, or was that something you discovered along the way?
Well, it's funny how I discovered it, and why I attached it to money. And this was before I'd read any of the research. I didn't even know if there was research that was public about this then. But when I was maybe 10 years into my financial advisory practice, what I noticed was people that were overspenders, not on track for their goals, would tell me what they didn't do. I don't go on big fancy trips. I don't drive a fancy car. And my clients that were really on track for their goals told me what they were grateful for. And they would say, you know what, I have such a beautiful life. Yeah, it'd be cool to redo my kitchen, but if I don't, it doesn't matter. I'm so blessed for all that I have. And so I created this theory that financial responsibility is correlated to gratitude. And so when our kids were little, we started a gratitude practice with them. And every night before they go to sleep, they'd share 5 things they were grateful for. I would share 5 things. And when I initially started it, I expected them to be very materialistic in their gratitude. Like, I'm so grateful for my Game Boy or whatever it was, their thing. And they said such beautiful things. They said, Mommy, I'm so grateful for our teachers. I'm grateful for my friends. I'm grateful that we're happy, healthy, and safe. This is like a 7-year-old saying this to me. Oh, and then one night, our son, Benji, he was about 10, said to me, Mommy, I'm so grateful that you and Daddy are so magnanimous and that we live in such a utopia and our life is so fortuitous. And I'm looking at him, he's 10, and he goes, oh, those are Mrs. Kramer's 5th grade spelling words.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so it was funny. But they're still really grateful. People used to, like, it was a beautiful practice to start. I had people calling me, like the dentist and things like that, like, everything's okay. I just want to tell you your son was one of the most polite teenagers we've ever had in here. Like, how lovely is that? So, so A, that made me feel good as a mom, but B, I think it does impact our money.
How so?
Because I think that when you are grateful, you're focusing on what you have and not what you don't have, which is a very good abundance thing.
Mhm.
And there have been like research studies now that grateful people make more money, which is so logical. Like, who wants to work for a jerk, right?
Yeah.
So that, or with a jerk, it just makes sense.
How do you find things to be grateful for during the dark times when it just seems like nothing is going right? How can you start to practice gratitude when things aren't, hunky dory and great?
Okay, well, I want to talk about two things. Let me first focus, because money tells me this a lot in readings that I do for people, like to up the gratitude practice, to focus on financial gratitude too. Because some people, even if they have a gratitude practice, it'll be on health or beauty around them. And you could be thankful, like, I'm so grateful we have enough money to have healthy food in our refrigerator. I'm grateful that I can pay my mortgage or my rent. I'm grateful for the client, if it's not clients yet, that has come in to me. But to answer your question, like, if things are really dark and it feels really hard, how about, like, I'm grateful I can breathe, that my lungs are working, because some people can't. I'm grateful we're in the Chicago area, right? I'm grateful it's sunny out. It's not always like that in November in Chicago, right? I'm grateful. There's always something that we can find. There's always something.
What about the other side of the coin? When you enter abundance and you have an abundance mentality and it starts to happen, how do you maintain that, just so it's not like a blip on it, like I'm abundant, I'm not. How do you maintain abundance or even increase it once you reach it?
Yeah, well, I think gratitude is a great way to do that. Generosity is a great way. It's kind of keeping the motion going. It's really all the things that we've talked about, being aware, like, I'm thinking a little bit of a scarcity thought. Let me focus on gratitude or giving or something to lower some of that stress. Being clear about what you most want and why. How is it serving other people to want that? Taking care of stuff that needs to get taken care of, and then sharing. So it's, you're bringing up a really good point, because it's easy for us to swing back to scarcity, but it's like working out. Like, I can't just go to the gym once and be like, okay, I'm in shape. Like, I'm done. Yeah. But awareness is probably a big key on that, and not in a fear-based way. Like this, like, what if it leaves? That's going against the current. It's like, okay, I'm realizing I'm worrying about that. I'm afraid money's going to leave me. Let me be a good partner to money and just be grateful that it's here now. Be really clear. How can I be a better friend to money?
Well, you've mentioned serving other people a few times. What could you dig a little bit deeper? What are some ways that you can serve other people?
Well, I think it depends what you do for your business or what your big idea is. If you're working with people to create their big idea and launching it, I think one of the best things to focus on is, how is it serving other people? I know that for years, being a financial advisor, we were taught to set goals on number of new clients or assets under management or revenues. And those are benchmarks. That's cool. But in the first recession I went through as an advisor, all of a sudden I realized people were freaking out and they needed me more than ever. And I leaned into, how can I lower people's stress around money? Like, and that is where all my attention was. And during a recession, my business grew 40%, because I wasn't focusing on crap. My business, like, my income's going to go down and blah, blah, blah. It was, how can I serve, and not selfless? Like, it's fine for me to be making money and I had employees and I wanted to serve them. But I think whenever we have a goal, if in addition to focusing on our why, like, why is it important to us, is also adding in who is being served by this, it moves things ahead much more quickly.
Well, in times like that, what did you do? I mean, how were you serving other people, and to have it reflect on your income that way too? What did you do to serve other people when you could have just said, "Oh my God, this is a horrible economy"?
Yeah, well, in that case, I was reaching out. I was very understanding. They were nervous. I wasn't judging them. Like, I get it. Here's why you're going to be okay. I did everything I could, excuse me, to have them be feeling more comfortable. And, that was specific to that business that I was in then. But I think in anything that we're doing, there's ways you could be leaning in. Before we started today, I wanted to be really clear on how I could serve your audience. And so it's focusing on who am I adding value for in whatever I'm putting out into the world.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in a relatively short period of time. If someone's watching or listening and they want to become abundant, if you were to say, if nothing else, do this one thing to get started, what would you tell them to do?
Give what you want to get. Give what you want to get. So if it's more referrals, give more referrals. If it's more money, open up your wallet a little bit and help someone out that needs your help. Yeah, give what you want to get.
That is excellent. Thank you so much for your time. And is there anything you'd like to share with our
Yeah,
with the
and
viewers
after
and
that,
listeners?
go buy my book, Messages for Money. I'm getting really, really nice responses from this. It's super practical. The second half of the book, there's like each chapter goes through aware, clear, care, and share with lots of tactical things. And if you just want some free resources, if you go to ellenrogin.com/goodies, you can download a copy of my first book, Great with Money, and that is free. So that is a gift for anyone listening.
Thank you so much for the gift. And thank you again so much for your time. This has been an awesome time spent with you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mark.